My name is Don Baker. I'm a professional photographer. I've been doing this for 40 years. And that's a long time, but it's been 40 years of fun, excitement, and being able to do something I love to do. When I wake up in the morning, I want to take pictures, or I want to get on my computer and edit. I want to do video. So you have to love it in order to do it. I'm a native Washingtonian. That means I was born and raised here. Okay, I graduated from Anacostia Senior High School. All right, there you go. Okay, so somebody here that's famous. And you don't know what you're going to do sometimes in high school, but you guys are already way ahead of where I was. I was 21 before I kind of figured out what I was going to do. As soon as I figured it out, I got drafted into the Vietnam War. So there goes my story. But you guys are on a good footing. You're starting off with at least with your interest level, and that's really important. The advantage that you have today is that you've been born into a generation that has cell phones, that you're already budding photographers without even having to have the interest, because you have cell phones and you're taking pictures of your friends. You're taking, I guess, what they refer to as selfies. I call them lonelies. Now, it's a reason why I call them lonelies, because I figure with all your friends standing around, if you can't get somebody to hold the camera and take a picture of you, that's a lonely if you have to do this. So, but now sometimes if everybody has to be in the group, I understand it. But if somebody else is standing around, don't take a lonely. Like I said, I went to Anacostia Senior High School. I decided I wanted to be a photographer. Why? Because I was a really small kid. I was too small to play varsity sports of any kind, even though I could play, but I didn't play well enough to be on a team. But what I noticed is when my brother and I took pictures of the cheerleaders, and see, back in the day, you had to send the film in. It wasn't digital. So we sent the film in, and if you're lucky, within 2 weeks, you got it back. You show them to the girls, they go crazy. So yeah, we're in the right area of photography right here. So that's what we started with fun. And that was just for fun. But once we got out of the Army, then we decided that people wanted to actually pay us to do it. And when people want to pay you to do it, you want to get better at it. And that's where the love of it comes in. And that's where the profit of it comes in, and that's where the education comes in. Because every day you're learning something new. I mean, today I use digital, as I just shot with this camera here. But back in the day it was film. And you have less time as a photographer because you're doing all the work yourself. I was in a laboratory to develop film, to make prints, all those things. However, I had other labs that would develop your film for you. So you had all day to do something else until they were finished. Now, you're your own lab. Your lab is what? Your computer or your cell phone. So therefore, you actually have to do all of the work. So it's best to learn that software while you're young, and you will grow on top of that. Now, what I'll do is I'll share some of my photos with you, because there's a story behind every photograph that you take. Whether it's a picture of a family member or your friends here in school or friends once you get home. That is history. Once you take that photograph, that is actually history. So for those who, I'm sure that you all are studying history since you're into the area of museums. So every picture you've taken with your cell phone, it's now history. You're never going to get that back. Whatever happened in that second is now history. And that's how you have to look at every photograph you take. I'm going to look at this photograph, you know, when I have them bury me and put my camera on top of there, I'm going to have a photograph of you guys on there saying, I was at Duke Ellington, you know, passing on some knowledge. And that's what life is all about. What legacy are you going to leave behind? And photographs, to me anyway, are one of the best legacies, but besides being a good human being, it's one of the best legacies that you can leave behind, because it tells your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and I just became a great-grandfather. My great-grandson will be 2 years old in December. And I just love the fact that he's going to know who his grandfather was and what his grandfather did, and the people that he had the honor of meeting over the years. So I'm going to share a few photographs with you here. See if we get started. Let's see, photographs. Okay. Okay, now you may recognize this building. This is the HUD building down on 7th Street. I was going by one morning. I had no idea all the years that it was there. I did not know that lit up at night. I was coming in 3:30 in the morning, And amazingly enough, I saw that lit, and it's a metro station right under that. So I got out my car at 3 o'clock in the morning to take this photograph. But I'm glad that I did, because once again, it's a piece of history. It's something that I did not know at the time. As I move on, now you'll notice this. Have you all seen this? This mural? Where is it? But where is it located? Are you looking up, or are you looking at street level? You're looking up, because they moved it when they redid the metro. I took this photo before they did all the building here at 13th and Florida Avenue. So that mural is now, that's a historic photo, because it's where it is now, but it wasn't there when I took this photograph. So it shows you how history will change things. So we move on here. Anybody know who that is? Levert. Gerald Levert. Now he's passed away. Prolific singer. He and his brother passed away. Both of them were great singers. His dad I know very well, Eddie Levert, and it was really very traumatic for him, because he's been a great entertainer for all these years. But that's a picture I took in Texas. People actually paid me to go out to Texas to take his picture. Another great thing about photography, you can get paid. But you want to take these images because of the emotion that is generated. When you see some of these photographs, we move right along, that's him and his father. It's the last picture I got of him and his father together, and they were singing on stage. So that's Eddie Levert on the right. Okay, as we move on, I'm sure you all know who this is. Right, Janet Jackson. In fact, I think she's coming to town sometime next year for a big concert. Oh, she's already got her tickets. Okay. So again, these are things I was able to do. When I was in high school, it's no way I could have believed that I would ever be photographing people like this, you know, big time stars. But I was committed to being a good photographer. My brother was committed to being a good photographer. So we got better and better at it. We built relationships with people who had power. That's the people at Ebony Magazine, places like that. They could get you in, and if they thought your work was really good, you could get into a lot of these events. This is Mrs. Coretta Scott King, the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King, who now has a memorial on the mall. I mean, again, one of those kind of things someone my age would have never thought, coming out of the civil rights movement, that we would ever be able to see a monument on the mall that would be representative of African American. And I've lived long enough to see that. Okay. All right, come on, give me a guess. Morris Day. Morris Day in the Time. And he's quite a character. A lot of fun, really fun guy performing. Now this is the Watergate and the Kennedy Center. Mm-hmm. So, but I took that from a room inside the Watergate. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was in another section of the Watergate. We were interviewing an entertainer at the time, and her window faced back, looking back, basically back east, and toward the Kennedy Center, and I was able to snap that photograph. That's little Kim. There you go. That's little Kim. Now, sometimes people say, well, Don, you're a photographer, so you don't know much about music, but I also used to be a DJ. I used to be a club DJ as well. You know, I worked all kinds of jobs to make that money, but you know, you have to hustle when you're doing the photography, because you don't always get the job. So you got to use some of your other talents to make sure that you can make ends meet. Okay, now this, people would say, well, why this picture? Well, this is the National Cathedral. But this was a bus stop area where, you know, a shelter where people would stand and wait for the buses. It's no longer there. That's all been torn out, because down they have underground parking at the cathedral. So that means I have a photograph of something, and that's something else you need to take. Take pictures of your neighborhood. Take pictures of where you travel in this city, because and particularly something that's old in terms of building structure, because it's going to be gone by the time you're an adult. It's going to be gone, renovated. So you need to make sure that you're capturing that history, because I wish I didn't do it, because you always think it's going to be there. Now, this is what I call the beginning of one of my favorite photographs in the world. Anybody recognize this man standing here? Okay, now I took this picture on April Fool's Day, 2003. Now you must keep in mind, no one knew who he was basically until the convention in 2004, 16 months after I took this picture. I didn't know who he was. I just saw this guy, everybody has on overcoats, he didn't. They have hats, he didn't. And he's talking to people going in to hear the affirmative action case from Michigan State Law School. So I snapped the picture. When he came across the street back my way, I had been talking to Judge Mathis, who some of you all have seen on TV. I snapped this photograph. He said, I hope you got a good shot, brother. I said, I think I did, and have a great day. You know, forgot about it. 16 months later, I see him at the convention speaking. I said, I've seen that guy somewhere before, but I did not know. Now, Tom Joyner, whom some of you all may know, Tom Joyner Morning Show, he did his show from there that day. He didn't even know who he was. And he asked me if I had some pictures from that. I said, okay, I'll go through them. When I went through, I found the picture. I made a print when he got elected. I made a print elected to the U.S. Senate. I knew he was going to be at an event that I was covering. I had him autograph that photograph. And this is what I said to him, honestly. I said, Senator Obama, I have taken your photograph, and now you are a U.S. Senator. The next time I take your photograph, you will be President of the United States. And I was just joking. I was just feeding his ego. We both laughed. Because you got to keep in mind, this was April of 2005 when I took that, when I presented him with the photo I had taken a couple years earlier. So now, fast forward to less than 2 years later, he announced he's running for president. So basically, the story of this being a great photograph is I was literally taking a picture of the very next president of the United States and had not a clue who he was. Just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I've got a lot of opportunities since then, since he's been elected for the White House and things like that. So you always, as a photographer, you never know who you're taking a picture of. You know, he couldn't have known that he was going to end up being the president of the United States. Certainly not the next president. So it just goes to show you that you should always keep your camera with you. I took this picture of a really beautiful building. It's in Boston. It's a Catholic chapel in Boston, Massachusetts. But I took it from my hotel window because it almost looked like it was just a model of something. It was so awesome. Yeah, you all may recognize him, Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, one of the most prolific boxers in his weight class as a welterweight, and really nice guy from this area. Came from Maryland. And always been a great guy. Again, I was paid to go to Las Vegas. I don't gamble, but again, you get to go and somebody else gets to pay for it. That's another good reason to be a photographer. Even if you're working for a news agency, you get to travel. Way back in the day, I think Stevie Wonder's been here to your school, hasn't he? Yes. So that was him back in 1975. So this with the glitter glasses, that was back in the disco era. So, he kind of looked disco back then. Anybody know Wyclef? Okay. So these are people I get to photograph a lot of. Photograph your city. We have one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Take out your camera. If you just take a couple of shots, it doesn't even have to be an excursion or anything. Just go out when you're in the area. Take a picture. Because you may not go back to take that picture, and I have found that sometimes when you don't take the picture, you don't need to get another chance, or the lighting doesn't work for you the next time you try to duplicate that. So take the picture when you're feeling it. This is another entertainer, Fat Joe. So this, okay, running for president of the United States again. This is Secretary Hillary Clinton. This is the secretary. Now, Kerry. So these are people I've taken photographs of before they became secretaries, high positions. Unfortunately, this is Jesse Jackson's son, Jesse Jackson Jr., and I had him pose for this photograph, and less than a year later, he was doing time on the other side of the bars. Well, I'll let that go. Now, this was the famous Richard Pryor, one of the best comics ever. Now, we look at it and we say, why do you have on the bandana? I didn't know why he had on the bandana. It took me 20 years to find out why. He was shooting a movie called Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars with Billy D. Williams and James Earl Jones about the Negro Leagues baseball, and he was trying to pass as a Cuban. So he had his hair processed, which is why, again, he had on the bandana. But there's little history, there's always a story behind that. Now, this was in my backyard. I have never in my life, before or since, seen a deer, a buck like this, 8-point buck, sitting in my backyard looking at me, looking at him. And believe me, I wasn't that close when I shot this picture. I had a long lens and the reason why is because when they're like out there like that, they have their females with them. And as it turns out, when he was actually getting up on his knees when I snapped that shot, and I said, "See ya." And and once he stood up like that, the females behind him with their young ones ran off. Must have been about 8 of them. So behind those bushes. So he's basically a protector. So just like lions. Now I call this is like old school because this is the 1980s. This is when boom boxes was a big deal. I mean, you got your iPads and iPhones and stuff with your music, with your headphones on, and it's all cool. You got your Beats headphones. These guys down there, this is right across from the district building, and they were sitting in the plaza, chilling, wintertime, with their beatbox, with a cassette tape, which I know you all don't know anything about cassette tapes. Now, again, what is history? What do you notice parked in that area? These are all my pictures. Yeah, you don't have, photographers don't show other people's pictures unless somebody else took it of them. Yes? Yeah, exactly. Well, this was taken, I took this back in 1974. And you'll notice that there's cars in the parking lot. You can't get near the parking lot. You can't even get near park anywhere within a couple blocks, if you're lucky, of your Capitol. So this shows you how history is. I took this picture and I'm going through some old negatives, and I found this picture. I said, this would be great because the Capitol looks nothing like that today, and particularly with the scaffolding. This is, of course, the Vietnam Memorial. A number of people, that I served with didn't come home. Now, this is back in the 70s. Now, this is one of my first models. She was a friend of some ladies I grew up with. And the paintings you see in the background are album covers. Again, something you would not know anything about. An album cover was like 12 inches by 12 inches, had great pictures on it, and the album made of vinyl was stuck inside. So these are some of the albums I painted in the background behind her. She had the Bush hairstyle. Y'all might know who this is. Okay, who was watching Empire the other night? Okay. Okay, so again, when you're a photographer, the one thing you have, and I want you to understand this, as a photographer, you have power. You have power you don't even know. You can actually, as a professional photographer, you can tell the president, Mr. President, would you look a little bit straighter this way, turn your body a little bit this way? You're telling the leader of the free world what to do, only for a few minutes, but you're telling them what to do. Nobody else is going to enter that room and say anything that's directing the President of the United States, or in this case, you can get someone like, Terrence Howard to stop. Terrence, give me a great shot. And they do it because they want to look good, which is why you have to be good. You can't mess up the opportunity because it may not come again. And we've all made our mistakes. Anybody? There you go, Alicia Keys. Now you may recognize her from reruns of Family Matters. She used to be Urkel's girlfriend. She's from DC, Kelly Williams, from Washington, DC. So sometimes you never know where they're from. I didn't know she was from Washington, DC. This is former Lieutenant Governor Steele and his sister at an event. His sister was married to Mike Tyson. Now I'm trying to figure out how did that happen? She's a doctor. So she must have really been having a bad day. Now I know you know who that is. There you go. See, now Jay-Z, he doesn't like smiling. You have to actually catch him smiling. And that's what you call a candid shot. So he has to know, or you have to know that he's not watching. And you catch him, because New York, Brooklyn, trying to be hard, so all of that. This is one of my most famous photographs. I had posters made, and some of these people you may or may not know from history. This is Dr. Shabazz, who was the wife of Malcolm X. This is Coretta Scott King, Dr. King's widow. This is Daisy Bates, and you may have heard of the Little Rock Nine. The Little Rock Nine were in Little Rock, Arkansas. In fact, one of my clients was the first to graduate from there, Ernie Green, and she was their advocate. And this woman was rough. You were talking about being in the South in the 1950s. she was telling the oppressive government there what they were going to do. She didn't ask. And I said, this woman lived into her 90s. This is a woman that she managed to live into her 30s, because she did not play. But she got them through that 1958 through high school. It was great. C. Dolores Tucker, you probably wouldn't know her, but she was the first state's attorney in the state of Pennsylvania. But she also had a run-in with Tupac. And I'm sure that you've heard or know of Tupac about the misogynist lyrics that he used and rappers would use against women. And then, of course, Rosa Parks, who's the mother of the civil rights movement, as she's been dubbed. So a photograph like that is great. Why? Because they're all gone now. So it's a picture that can never be taken again. And I was the only photographer in the room at the time that had this photograph. So it makes you really feel good that you have a piece of history that can't be repeated. Okay, these are the King children. I wonder what's happening here. Is it TV? Okay, this is Martin Luther King III. This is his sister Yolanda. She passed away. Sister Bernice. And this is Andrew Young, who marched and worked with Dr. King. And he is still alive, but she passed away at age 50. This is Martin Luther King and Dick Gregory. Some of you may have heard of Dick Gregory, one of the great civil rights leaders, but he's also a great comic. He's right here in D.C. Now this is a photograph that I did, and I'll share this with you. James Clyburn was only the second African American to be the majority whip of the House of Representatives. This is his latest book, and they commissioned me to do a portrait of him in his office when he was majority whip, so he could use this for his book. This is something else that you can get from making these kind of contacts, is now that you have people in high powerful positions that will hire and pay you well to do a great photograph of them. You know, so this, again, as thinking about being a photographer, is more than just snapping the camera. Now this is 1977, this is Jimmy Carter. Now, of course, some of you may have heard the news that he's suffering from cancer. This was the inauguration of President Obama back in 2009. And the beauty of this was, it took me 200 shots to get this shot. Because the bird, I had a flash on my camera because the sun was setting, and I was standing at the Library of Congress across the street from the Capitol. And I just wanted to get that silhouette, but these seagulls kept flying in front of my camera. So I looked up and I said, well, maybe I can catch one of them. And after about 180 shots, this is the one I got. I took over 200, but this was the best one because the flash caught him right where he was flying into my frame. So every now and then you're able to get some of these creative shots, which is a lot of fun. Now, the first, I'm going to show you this one because it's really, really important to me. This was my first important job with an entertainer. This was Michael Jackson and his brothers, the Jacksons, back in 1979. My brother and I were the only photographers ever allowed on stage to take pictures while they were performing. It was such a thrill because we had only been professional photographers for about 4 years, but the people knew that we would be being photographers and not being starstruck, and that's the big difference. So these moves that you've seen in some of the documentaries and things like that, this is what they were doing on stage. There was like 25,000 people at the back then, the Capitol Center, and it was so much fun because we got to work with Michael. Was mostly on my side of the stage. My brother was on the other side. And as we looked at the pictures over the years, we began to see each other, because the flash was going off, and I could see my brother on the other side of the stage. And I said, I bet you don't have any with me. And he found one a picture of me with Michael when I took this shot of Michael on the stage floor. So it was really, 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 really great. Now Michael came back again, and when he was on his own. And this was one of the shots we got from Smooth Criminal. And it was really good. And to this day, we still haven't figured out how they do that lean. Maybe y'all have figured it out. I have not figured it out yet. You know how they do it? I thought it might have been magnetic shoes that they had on the floor, and they turn on the electricity and they could lean and not move the shoes. I thought of 1,000 ways that it could work, and I'm probably wrong on all of them. So that was kind of good. Now to show you that we had, when you talk about style of clothing, this is really funny because this was at 10th and 10th and F Street. The name of the store was Cavaliers. And the thing about Cavaliers was that we had the hippest clothes. We thought we had the hippest clothes, just like today you have the hippest clothes, but I guarantee you 20 years from now, you don't want to show your kids what you were wearing 20 years earlier. But we thought we were cool. And really, today I would call this guy a clown, but back then we were cool. That was back in the day. And we had platform shoes. I never bought them, but a lot of guys had platform shoes. The funny story, a guy on 16th Street, a guy had snatched this woman's purse, and the police were right on the street. This guy started running down 16th Street toward P Street, tripped up because he had on platform shoes, and the police stood over him with guns laughing at him. He said, "You idiot, you might have got away if you had on tennis shoes." So again, another reason why you should be careful of what you wear, trying to be stylish. And of course, one of my most favorite pictures of President Mandela. This is when he became president in 1994. And it was really, really an honor to be selected as one of the photographers that would be in the room with him when he gave this speech to the Congressional Black Caucus. Okay. Anybody know who this is? SETI. Yep, Cedric Entertainer. Really, really good. Now this was in New York. I traveled to New York to take this photograph. They did a big concert for the King Memorial before it was built. They were raising more money. And John Legend was absolutely awesome. So y'all know who these folks are. Now this is Wyclef without the dreadlocks. Yeah, now, just to go show you, People magazine offered me $10,000 for this photograph. Now, I didn't take it because I was hired by the Alpha Kappa Alphas Alpha Phi Alphas to take pictures for this event. Why did they want to pay me $10,000? Because he was married at the time. No one had seen his ring, and as you can see in this photo, I had the shot of the ring. And they saw that because there was only two photographers allowed up front, me and one of the media photographers. All the other photographers were way in the back, so they didn't get the shot because he was basically hiding his hand. That's why he looked over me with this worried look on his face. I wonder if that picture's going to show up. I said, don't worry about it, it's done. You see him in the mornings, Roland Martin on TV1. I was so happy to take this quick portrait of Senator Kennedy. I took this 8 months before he passed away. One of the giants. When I was a kid, his brother became the first Catholic to become president of the United States, John F. Kennedy. And he also lost his brother Robert Kennedy to assassination as well in 1968, a few months after Dr. King was murdered. But he was really such a nice guy, and he worked for seniors and young people. And this is over at National Airport. It looked like that plane is a little bit close. Well, the thing about photography, that's what perspective is all about. That plane was nowhere near close to the ground. He was actually landing toward the airport, which was beyond that. But again, I caught the shot, and it looked like he was about to land in the park, but clearly he was not. This is Donnie Simpson. For those who know Donnie Simpson, this is his niece, Sinead Simpson, who's a reporter. She used to be on Channel 7. She's moved up to bigger things. Wynton Marsalis, great trombonist, New Orleans, awesome guy. This is that shot that I was showing you earlier that I caught. That took 200 shots to catch. But to catch them in full wingspan and stuff, that's what you love. Well, see, the sun was setting behind the Capitol. So and some of you all will learn this with your cell phones. When you take a picture, always remember, photography is about light. It's about light. So without light, you have no photography. So always remember, where's the light? If I was going to take a picture and these lights weren't on, where's the light coming from? The windows. So you would put your subject over here so that the light coming through the windows will shine on your subject. A lot of people will stand with the people over here, and your digital cameras or your cell phones are going to adjust for the light coming in, not the people in behind, that's in front of it. So you end up with these dark pictures, and you wonder why. Always follow the light. Wherever the light is coming, put your subject there. Even if you're doing a selfie, make sure that you are standing here where the light is coming in and do your lonely. Okay. Yeah, I was shooting in manual, and I had a flash. That's why the seagull is lit up, because I had the flash pointing up, and it caught him in flight, because the sun was already setting on the other side. You can see this is where the sun was going down on the west side. Okay. She used to have a reality show. There you go, Keisha Cole, real nice. She was real nice to me anyway. I mean that in a nice way. This is looking back now. This is the Museum of American History, and I had never been on the backside of this building. So I'm coming out the backside, I see these beautiful flowers, and then I've got the monument in the background. Again, one of those kind of shots. I haven't been back there since, but I've got the shot that I wanted. Now this is the old Howard Theater down the street. This is what it looked like when I was going to it. Of course, not totally like this. I mean, it was better, but that's the old building before they started the renovations. And so the Howard Theater you see today is totally renovated. But we used to hang out there, acts like James Brown, the Temptations, the Supremes, all the groups that you all are saying, who are they? Okay, yeah, there were no rappers back then. So. Okay, now this is a great night shot. I call this, what did I call this? Purple Capitol. Because, no, Purple State, I'm sorry, Purple State. Because that's kind of like where we were during the election of President Obama. You know, a lot of states that were red were turning purple with blue. And this moon is only close, maybe every 17 years you get, not 17, every 5 or 6 years the moon gets this close to the Earth. This is Whitney Houston. And unfortunately, as most of you know, her daughter passed away, Bobby. And I had photographs of Bobby when she was doing this show. It was 1997. She was the HBO program that she was doing, and I was taking pictures. And for some reason, Bobby Brown, the father, sends the kids out on stage. They were doing this taping. And of course, Whitney wasn't expecting that to happen. So all these little things that you had pictures of, you start realizing sometimes these guys are crazy. And she's doing a show, and she sends the kids out, and Bobby was like that back then. Again, the memorials in the city. Take pictures of this stuff. This is your town. Take pictures of this, because this is where you live. This is the rotunda of the Capitol. Beautiful. You know, you have to actually go in there and see this. It's free. You know, get a class group or get some friends and let's go. You know, your folks pay taxes. This is paid for. This is a free trip here. You know, this is one of the shots I got when Nancy Pelosi was still the Speaker of the House, and President Obama. They were coming down the steps of the Capitol after celebrating St. Patrick's Day back in 2010. And of course, this is Jesse Jackson then. This is the Museum of Art, National Museum of Art, right? This is the West Building. This is the older building. But I shot that from the museum. You know, I never saw that view before they built the museum. So again, you have to sometimes go back to places where you've never been, and you have and this is going down from the same to the museum a little later that evening, shooting down toward where you see the clock tower. That's where the new Donald Trump hotel is going to be built. Yeah, I said the same thing. I love this shot because two of the people here are gone. I got a chance to work with Oprah, Danny Glover. This is Maya Angelou, who just passed not too long ago last year, and Dr. Height, who passed away in 2010. So, good guess. I know you know who this is. This is Rosa Parks. And this is a candid shot. She wasn't posing or anything, but again, sometimes your best shots are candid shots because the people aren't aware that you're pointing your camera in their direction. Now, I know y'all seen him on MSNBC, Reverend Al Sharpton.
He was on Empire.
Huh?
He was on Empire.
Right. He was. Somebody told me he was on that. But you see how small he's gotten. But it's not about weight. When I took this picture, this is Ron Brown. He was. I say assassinated, but anyway, he died in a plane crash. He was the Secretary of Commerce, and he died in 1996. But anyway, Al Sharpton was at a Black Caucus event. New Yorkers are known for wearing, back in that time in the early 90s, known for wearing their gold chains and stuff like that. Al Sharpton's wearing brass. So I got on his case. I said, you know, you're from Brooklyn, New York, and you're wearing brass. Why did you wear that at all? I thought the New Yorkers wore gold chain. So he thought I was making fun of his weight. I said, no, I didn't I put the picture there because you were standing with someone famous, but you were also wearing cheap brass around your neck. I said, so that's what I'm getting on you about. So he had to laugh then. This is my brother and I. I'm on the right. We were being honored by the Congressional Black Caucus for our work as photographers. And again, this is something else you don't expect. You know, you don't work to get awards. You don't work to make people think that you're famous. You work because you love doing it. You like capturing faces. You know, when I see you all's faces in here, I light up because I know you're the next generation that's going to carry on the history of your own lives and keep up with the past history of my life and those before me. So these were two congressional members, Donna Christensen of the Virgin Islands. She's no longer a congressperson there. And this is Barbara Lee of Texas. And that's my brother Ron, and of course that's me on the right side. Once again, here we are on stage with the Jacksons. I love these shots because these guys, this was some of the crowd. You can see how excited they were. And see, back then, they didn't have all the technology now, so you have all that cable and stuff running across. It's a wonder Michael didn't fall down into the pit. And girls were passing out even then. Y'all think y'all go see Usher or some whoever's popular today and pass out. And I said, why are you passing out? Because now they won't, once they take you out, they don't let you back in the show. And this was on the first song. So the girl done paid all this money and taking all this time to get to the show, passes out, and they throw her out. See? And this picture appeared in Ebony magazine, by the way. This was 1979. But her eyes were rolled back in her head, so she was done. So this, again, flipping through these pictures, the Jacksons were awesome. It was a great show. This is Michael in 1988 when he was on his own. And that was, again, at the Capitol Center. And these guys, I mean, he put on such a great show. And again, my brother and I got called in, Channel 9, when Michael passed away, to share some of these photographs. And I don't know how they knew we took photographs of him, but apparently they know us. So, like I said, you know, people try to make you famous, but like Dave Chappelle, I don't like being famous. I just like doing what I do. So these kind of shots like this are really interesting. Tito, who always seems to be the joke of the group, but Tito was cool. Tito, you know, he didn't get caught up in a bunch of controversy or anything. He just played his music. Now there's my brother on the other side of the stage. So that's what, 1979. So that's 27 years ago that he's on stage. So he was on the other side of the stage, and that's when we caught it. So that's proof that we were there, that we did it. And of course, I always had more pictures of him than it seems like he had of me on stage. This is Rosa Parks when President Carter came. You saw this picture here. Barry White, smooth brother. Donna Summer, we were very tight with her. She passed away as well, but she was called the Disco Queen. You saw I did the wedding for Tom Joyner in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Spent 4 days, and again, as a photographer, they pay for it. Always remember that. You can travel around the world and have somebody else pay for it. So, and get paid at the same time. So it was beautiful on the beach. Patti LaBelle. We do weddings too. Now this wedding, this couple were rich. And I'm saying rich because it cost them $500,000 just to do the reception room. But you can see how beautiful it is. But again, when you get clients like that are willing to spend money, you have to do a good job. You can't go in there halfway because your name is on the line. So, you know, beautiful weddings, people pay. This is General Colin Powell, who became Secretary of State, and William Cohen, who was Secretary of Defense. Again, two clients of mine. Would have never guessed years ago I would be around people like this. Okay, this is Devon. Okay, Raheem Devon, yeah. Another brother from DC. I knew his mother, until his mother told me. I didn't even know that was her son. Okay, this is a shot I love. Right here in DC. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So they were heading south. So And this was a couple having their first baby. They wanted to have something to remember. And this they met at the Jefferson Memorial. So that's where we took it. She was about 3 weeks away from having her baby. This is one of my favorite pictures, Des Bryant dropping a pass. But now you say, okay, oh, you do sports too. Well, I did sports, but what I did, I built a relationship with the person in the public relations department. I was not a sports photographer. So on the normal circumstances, I would not be on the field. You don't have all these credentials. So when they see my brother strolled on the field, how'd y'all get on here? Oh, well, we know the PR people. You have to build relationships. That's really important. Just like you build relationship with your friends, you have to build a relationship with people who can get you into and get you paid and get you in events that under normal circumstances you would not have gotten in. So it's so much more fun being on the field taking that shot because I'm right at the ground level where it's happening. So that's what makes it fun. We do renovation shots for construction companies. This is New York Avenue. Now you have all these beautiful lights and everything, but they wanted shots first thing in the morning and they wanted late sunset. Again, you have to be versatile too. Now you may decide it's one area that you want to be a photographer in, and that's okay. But always remember, it's good to be diverse because you never know when the money's going to dry up in one area and open up in another. So weddings may be slow this year. So therefore, what else are you going to do? Well, I have other events I'm going to do. This was really funny. I'd never seen this. It was 3 cats on a roof in my neighborhood. I'm driving by, heading to DC as a matter of fact, and these 3 cats were up on the roof. So I got out, I shot this with a long lens because they were looking at me because once I stopped my truck, they were like, what's he up to? But it was just an interesting shot. I've never seen cats up on the roof like that, and particularly 3 of them. Now, a lot of people say they don't like the King Memorial. I love this memorial. Why? Not that they don't like the King Memorial. They feel they didn't like the design. But this type of rock, this type of structure allows for different lighting schemes. And you can go there from early in the morning to late at night and get some great shots using your lighting. And that's why I say light is photography. This looks like a great shot. Why? Because the lighting is right. The sky was perfect. It was slightly overcast clouds, but they added texture to the picture. So these are the things. Another shot that's kind of like weird, Marion Barry and his wife, and Sharon Pratt and her husband. The Sharon Pratt followed Barry as mayor, but that's a weird shot because they'd never taken a picture together. And I had them at an event. Now this is me on the Rock Newman show. And if y'all go to Howard University station, WHUT.org, or go to rocknewman.net, you can see the taping my brother and I did. I'm more comfortable obviously behind the camera, but our story will help you understand. We came from very humble beginnings right here in Washington, D.C., and tried to make something out of ourselves. We lost both our parents at age 19. Both my mother and father died 5 months apart. But what they taught us between that time helped us to carry on, and we always want to make them proud, even though they would never get to see their grandchildren or their great-great-grandchildren as I am a great-grandfather now. So we want to make them proud, and this is what we decided to do, that we were going to make the best of what talents we had, and turns out our talent was photography. Funny guy, as you well know, but really nice guy too. Because this was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. All the stars come in and like that, but they don't always look your way. So you have to be thankful. Will I Am, really nice brother. And of course it's the present day, Al Sharpton. But that's what's so great about photos too. Because if it hadn't been any old photographs of Sharpton, I bet he would have been telling you, I always been this thin. No, you weren't. I got proof. And you weren't running around with no women like this either. So anyway, Cam Newton, let's move forward. Cam Newton, great football player for the South Carolina Panthers. Lupita, who played in 12 Years a Slave, beautiful in anything she wears. I'm telling you, she's just awesome. This is the president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And the news that you might have heard sometime back was they had an outbreak of disease. What was that? Ebola, yeah, Ebola. And she was here in the United States trying to get assistance, and they were able to make it happen. Now, again, someone you didn't know at the time, and I'm so glad I stopped to ask to take a picture. This is General Powell and myself when we actually had black hair. So just in case you didn't think you don't think I always had gray hair. This was in 1987 or 88. But anyway, I met him at an event. I took pictures. We both served in the Army. We both served at Fort Carson, Colorado. I did not know him then, obviously, but I told him we had a great conversation on the Army. I said, I'd like to keep in touch with you. And I said, let me take a picture with you now because you're going to be famous. And he said, I'm not going to be famous. I said, well, you're already famous because you know you're on the national security team. Now we all know who he is. And he could have actually run for president, and I think he probably would have won at the time. But it just goes to show you how time passes. This is a group shot of some postal workers. I only show you this shot because these are things that you can be doing. If you like taking pictures of groups and portraits, you can do that. This was, of course, recently. Isn't that a beautiful picture? I decided at the last minute, it must have been about 8:35 in the evening, I said, I'm gonna go on down there. Anyway, I'm so glad I did because this has never happened at the White House to be that kind of lighting shined on the White House. Something else, I stopped only maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. These were young people and older people from Bolivia. And they were here doing a special dance, and it was almost like a battle because there were other apparently South American countries who were trying to, apparently, they say, steal their dance. So they came here to do their dance and you know, tell everybody, no, this is our dance, not their dance. But they were all this beautiful garb that they have on, these costumes and everything, just beautiful. And this is the Executive Mansion building. This is the office of the Vice President of the United States. But it's a very beautiful building. Here's Michael again. Now this is the former Attorney General Eric Holder and his wife, Dr. Sharon Malone. And this was just last Thursday. And they posed for me. He was receiving an award. And then, now this is where photography is so important. See what the photographer did that I handed my camera to? Cuts the guy's head off. Now that's called bad photography. So but the guy who took it wasn't a photographer, but he was a great motivational speaker. Donnie Simpson's back on radio. This is wife Pam. This was at the Black Caucus dinner. This is the new Attorney General, Mrs. Lynch. This is Chrisette Michelle. I photographed her when she dropped her first CD. She looked nothing like that. And of course, here's the president. So I'm showing you these. This is a Congressman, Al Green. When I first heard his name years ago when he came, I thought somebody was joking, saying that Al Green, the singer, was in the house, and actually was this guy from Texas. This is one of my favorite shots here. See how close the moon is and the reflection in the water. So, and this is the Ferris. Has anybody been on this down in the harbor? You have? Yeah. I've not been on it yet. What is it like? Is it cool? Yeah. Okay. I just love taking pictures of it. You know, I get paranoid. I think the thing's gonna fall over in the water. So it's now this is 20 years next month. Will be 20 years of the Million Man March. When I took this picture here, people say, "Oh, that's a great shot." I didn't see it when I took it. Everybody was taller than me. I stuck the camera up and caught the shot. So you just never know, because they had all of the Fruit of Islam, who is the security, in front of us. This is Diana Ross in Atlantic City. Kind of an interesting shot there. Sugar Ray Leonard back in the day. Now this is really back in the day. This is 1975, Jesse Jackson, when he was a revolutionary. Okay, now this is the first cabinet of President Clinton in 1993. Secretary of Commerce Brown, Hazel O'Leary, Energy. This was Mike Espy, Agriculture. And this was the Surgeon General. Forget her name right now, but she had a lot of controversy. Anybody know Maya? Yeah. This is Maya before she got her record contract. She and my niece went to high school together. In fact, I got them to work with President Clinton for me one time. Muhammad Ali, he loved women. This was at a fight right here at the Capitol Center. Donnie Simpson with LaToya Jackson. I took the picture, and what did she say to me? "Why are you taking a picture?" She's a little spacey. This is Michael up close. Now this is me with Stephanie Mills. She's a recording artist, very big recording artist. Yeah, she's only 4 foot. She was 4'9". I'm short. I'm 5'8", and she was like 4'9". Made me feel like Akeem Olajuwon or somebody. This was one of my. She was just here in town. She's now in her early 60s, but this was down on F Street. Now where you see at 13th and F Street, that building, the gift shop, and where the Blue Mirror, which was a restaurant, no longer there. This is why I tell you, take pictures of your town, because you never know when they're going to tear these buildings down. You know, now you have the Marriott Hotel and all that down there, so that's all gone. These are all NFL, not NFL, all Hall of Fame players, either football, basketball, baseball, but you couldn't get, every one of them are in the Hall of Fame sports. This was done at my studio at my house. Evander Holyfield came over to take photos with Riddick Bowe, and Riddick Bowe lived right around the corner from me. This is my mentor. This is Gordon Parks, one of the first black photographers for Life magazine. He did the first movie of Shaft was done by him. Now this is the picture. This is Maya. This is my niece, who's an attorney now. She's a very successful businesswoman in her own firm, and Maya. So Maya looks nothing now like she did then, and not only because of age, but totally different person. But I had them volunteer. Now they have and the pictures were signed by the president. Okay, so those are the photographs that I have, and to share with you, and a couple of the books. But I also do books. So like, you know, these type of books that will you know, display my work. So people buy these books. These books are like, what are they, $350 a piece. And I know, and I have a list of people. Every time I do a book, I sell at least 500 books. So I publish them on my own. So all the money goes in my pocket, and not publishers who want to rip you off. Okay, so now questions about photography. Anything about me? If you have any other questions, or maybe someone want to share a story about what they would like to do in this area of studying museums and photography. Anybody?
So were you like a part of the press at the Black Caucus, or like
No.
were you just there as a photographer?
Yeah, we have been covering the Black Caucus since, my brother and I, since 1975.
Oh, okay.
And that's 40 years this year. But we never wanted to be press photographers. Now, you might say, well, why wouldn't you want to be press photographers? Well, that's because we own all of our work. So when you work for a company that's hiring you to travel the world or travel to events and take pictures, they own those photos. So people with pictures you see in Ebony magazine or Time magazine from their photographers, Time and Ebony and other magazines, People magazine, they own those photographs. So when you're ready to retire or ready to do a book, you can't use those photos without their permission, and they're going to get a piece of that action. My brother and I decided early on we did not want, you know, to have other people sharing in the work that we did. So we decided on our own that we were just going to be freelance photographers. And we built our own base of customers, and we go to all these events. And when we started out taking pictures at the Black Caucus, back then, of course, it was film, we'd send pictures to the congressional members and staff people in hopes that they would look at the pictures. We ended up getting a lot of business, family portraits, events, because of that. We gave something away. You have an advantage now. You can send, and this is one of the world famous photographers, Roy Lewis. Now, and one of my great colleagues here.
He's the one right here. This guy right here. He's the one.
I already paid him, so you don't have to worry about that. But
Video guy. I don't want to get him away.
yeah, but the point is that we decided to be freelance photographers because we want to own our work, and that's basically what that boils down to. And if you're okay with not owning the work, then you still can make a great living as well.
What was your most recent event that you did?
Well, it was a Congressional Black Caucus, and this was this past Saturday. And I try to go to as many as I can each year because, in this case, the President of the United States goes to each and every one of those each year. So, and the First Lady accompanies him. So it's always good to have pictures of the President because next year will be his last Congressional Black Caucus. So I didn't go to every one that he was at. Oddly enough, I did go to every one that President Clinton was at, because it was a lot easier then. It's difficult getting credentials now, or it's such a hassle in a lot of cases. But fortunately, my brother and I built relationships with the people who run the event as far as PR, so we were able to, secure press credentials to get in. But it's a great event, and like I said, the president's last one will be next year, so we'll look forward to doing that one. Someone else?
What is it like for you to see everything change when you were growing up? So like when you started photography up until the present?
Well, the beauty of it is that things indeed did change. The only disappointing part is that when you're young, you don't necessarily think about things changing. So when you start seeing all the new, this U Street corridor, you all aren't old, in most cases aren't old enough to even know, but the U Street corridor is totally different now. U Street and Florida Ave is totally different. The buildings that you see, the people that you see going up and down the streets into the various restaurants and businesses and clubs and stuff, it wasn't there. 15 years ago, I would not have driven through U Street. I can be honest with you, because it was rough over here, and particularly in the 80s, during the crack epidemic and everything, you just did not want to be on here because anything could happen. But through renovation and through change and through investment in building, this whole corridor has really become a great social change. And so I'm happy to see the change. But in addition to that, some of it leaves me sad because some of the people who used to live in this corridor can no longer afford to live in this corridor. And that part is, to me, is sad, because they won't get the, some people, that their kids won't get the experience of growing up in DC, because in many cases you can't even afford to live in the city anymore. That's why I moved, because I really just couldn't afford to live in the city anymore. But I moved like almost 30 years ago, and but I've been happy ever since, so I'm cool with that. Any other questions? You have a question?
Could you walk us through the process from the time you take a photo
Mm-hmm.
to actually owning the rights to that photo, so that a magazine, for instance, like you explained before, what keeps them from taking the Usher photo if it's out for them on the internet to take?
Okay, well, here's the situation. First of all, it's important for you to understand that the moment you take a photograph, even with your cell phone, remember, you own that photograph the moment you take it. Now, where do you go from there? You can register your photographs, and you really should register a whole lot at one time. You can put them on discs now, CDs or a thumb drive, whatever, and you can get it, put in an application at the Library of Congress, and you can then secure. Why you want to do that, and typically if you got great pictures, and this is as your career progresses. You want to take those pictures and register them with the Library of Congress, because they will have a copy, and if a magazine were to take your photograph and use it, and it happens all the time. I've gotten calls, and I tell you, I got paid well for a shot that was used by several magazines without my knowledge, and it just so happened my sister-in-law noticed. She said, "I think you took that photo," and it was 30 years ago. So therefore, I was able to sue them, and I collected $25,000. Now, I would have let them use the photograph with a usage fee for only $500. So I made $24,500 more because they used it without my authorization, because it was copyrighted and it was in the Library of Congress. But you as a person, any pictures you take, for the moment you take it, it's yours. Unless you're at a private event, then it can get a little murky. But pictures you take on the street and stuff like that, or your friends or whatever, they're yours, you own it. But it's always good at some point in time, if you decide you want to keep them, or if you figure that you've gotten to a point where you want to use, publishing a book or whatever, or put them on the internet. You want to make sure things like $35 now, $40 to register. So you want to register as many as you can at one time. So you just don't, every picture isn't going to be $35, $40. You can register 1 million pictures if you want for that one time. So you want to make sure you have everything you want on that disc. And always do the important pictures. It's not just any pictures, but pictures you might feel that someone, hey, they might like this picture, or somebody might use this picture. Because they'll take them in ads. This photographer is fighting all the time to sue people because they've stolen their work. So being a photographer, you know, it can be rough, but you got to pay attention and have your friends paying attention for you, because you can still get paid, but you have to catch them first, and particularly overseas. That's the more difficult part. Another question, anybody?
What type of camera do you use, and what type of lens do you use?
Oh, okay. Well, the camera that I use, Canon. Okay, and now obviously the two top cameras are Canon and Nikon. And of course, we, as professional photographers, we'll go back and forth which camera is best. But see, I was shooting what was called a medium format camera back in the, probably up until 98, when I got my first 35 millimeter of any consequence. Because this is a digital, and the first Canon digitals didn't come out till toward the end of 2000, so I was still shooting film. But I went to 35 and I had these lenses, and lenses aren't cheap, you know, because like this one was like $2,500 for this lens. You know, the cameras back then started out around $3 grand, which actually was a good price, because the same camera like this before they got into competition with each other was like $20,000. So unless you worked for a company that could afford to pay $20,000 for a digital camera, and they didn't even have any memory. 1 megabyte, think about this, because y'all think in terms of gigabytes, but a 1 megabyte card back in the day when digitals first came out cost $500 for 1 megabyte. You couldn't get that many pictures on it, but you know, you were always ahead of everybody else. That's why we got it, my brother and I got in early. And some of the guys laughed at us, and all you Baker boys always want to be first. But the fact is, it wasn't having a digital camera, it was understanding you had to learn the software. You don't learn the software, I don't care what kind of digital camera you have, you're not going to be able to manipulate the image properly. So any of y'all who actually get a camera like this, or, you know, Canon Rebels, and they're not overly expensive, you know, under the $1,000 range, $500, $600, $700. You start with that kind of camera, you know, I would always encourage you to shoot, if the camera shoots in RAW, shoot in RAW. RAW is like a real negative. It has all the information. If you just shoot in JPEGs, it has to be perfect, and that's rare, even for the best photographers. RAW will give you the best chance to correct that photograph. If it's underexposed or overexposed, you can correct it if you shoot it in RAW. So software is going to be the key. That's where your lab is, on your laptop, on your desktop. That's where your lab is going to be. Unlike me back in the day, where I'm soaking stuff through all these chemicals and probably damaging my lungs and everything else. I hated it. They called it the dark room because you were in the dark. And, you know, developing film and stuff like that. I hated it. My brother loved it. I hated it. And even the thought of it, I still hate it. But now your lab is the desktop, and that requires more software knowledge. And Photoshop, things like that, most of you all probably have some familiarity with it. All right, next question. Or somebody maybe tell me about what their interest in photography. It's really more about you now, because we're talking about commitment. And whatever you decide to do, be it photography or be a curator in the museum, or I could play, but I didn't play well enough to be on a team. But what I noticed is when my brother and I took pictures of the cheerleaders, and see, back in the day, they don't get paid. I can tell you that right now. The photographers are a dime a dozen, as most people tell you. But the good ones, in any profession, the good people always stand out. I would have never guessed I'd have been on the Rock Newman show and those kind of things. Because, you know, like I told you earlier, you know, that was not my goal. My goal was to just do good work. And it's proof that if you do good work, whatever you do, if it's good work, people will pay attention to it, they will notice you, and they will remember your name. And when things come up that are important, that they know they're going to get a good photographer, your name will be amongst that conversation. And that's a good feeling. Because you may not hear from them tomorrow, but 6 months down the road, hey, I want you to do my wedding. Well, nobody wants to have their wedding messed up. That's a one-shot deal. You can't correct that after you messed it up. So therefore, they want somebody that they can trust that's going to do that. You know, as a matter of fact, I even get people calling me to shoot funerals. My brother videotaped a funeral last week of a well-known guy here in D.C. It took me years. I think I was 40 before I would shoot a funeral. It just seemed odd to me. But then we realized a funeral is nothing more than a celebration of a person's life, of my life, of your life when that time comes. And so therefore, I got over it and realized that people want good pictures. because they got kids and grandkids that didn't know their grandparent or know that person that well that passed away. So now they have a documented proof, either by video or by photos. So I kind of crept into it. I don't really promote doing it. You know, I don't go out and say, oh, anybody in your family died? We shoot photos. No, I don't do that. But it's interesting to do when the opportunity arises.
I still use film today. I still I have a darkroom I go to and I use. So, I mean, I just like film better than digital cameras. But I started using film or dark rooms when I was like 7. So I've had a lot of time in those.
Now, do you like making prints? Do you make prints?
Sometimes, but I send sometimes like when I'm lazy or I just don't feel like developing them. I send them out to a manufacturer.
Okay.
And a factory, and they do it.
And this is to also remind everyone, film is not dead. It's just that when you have clients that need that work, it's like when the Polaroid camera came out. Land camera came out in the 50s. And that was like digital when it came out. You know, you could see it right away. And I had a Polaroid camera. I had the top of the line Polaroid camera because I could take a picture, color or black and white, and the picture was right there for us to see. So that was a big deal back then. Film has some advantages in terms of latitude that digital didn't. Now, digital has that latitude now because for the last 15 years, it's been growing and it's gotten better and better and better. In fact, I'll show you. 15 years ago, you could not have gotten a digital photograph to look like this. Now, this is a photograph, obviously you know this is RG3, but this is a photograph that I did and when I did the shots on ground at the FedEx field. And I asked him to pose for me, but I asked him not to smile. Because most people see him smiling, he's doing the Subway commercials and that happy look. But I said, no, I don't want you to smile because he wasn't playing in that game. And I said, I don't know anybody who's at that professional level who's gonna be smiling because they're on the bench. And so I said, I want you to have this serious look off into space like, when is my next chance? I didn't tell him that, but I said, just give me that serious look. But they will do it for you. Again, it's still a great picture as far as I'm concerned, but it's a different look of an RG3 because I have not seen a picture like this because no one's probably ever asked him not to smile because that's natural for him to do so. And his parents are the same way. Both his parents are great smilers. So, but it's just to show you that printing digital, you know, has reached the level of film printing. So you can do that and you can control it as long as you're shooting in RAW, which is like having the negative. So that's real important. But film is not dead. It's just becoming increasingly more difficult to find labs that will develop and process film, and it's costing you an arm and a leg ultimately because fewer photographers, particularly professional photographers, are shooting film. And everybody's got a cell phone, so that makes film really, you know, take you back to charging you more because not that many people are doing it anymore. But you know, as long as they have it, as long as you enjoy it, stick with it because you have some advantages to film. So, anyone else?
What was one of the most memorable experiences you've ever had? What would you say is the most memorable? Well,
I would say to this day, one of my most memorable moments was definitely working with the Jacksons. Because again, it was, first of all, it's not the kind of experience you would expect to have after being a photographer for 4 years. You just would not expect to get a phone call saying, you know, the Jacksons need 2 photographers. We understand you and your brother do really good work. Can you all do this? Can I do it? I mean, I was like to ask somebody, you know, would you like something to eat? Of course I would. So that was and still even 37 years later, it still sticks with you because it could have been any other photographer. They were great photographers already, experienced with working with celebrities and stuff. And my brother and I really weren't. You know, we had a few celebrities to work with, but not at that level. And to be able to do that is still a humbling experience to know that I have work that was published as well as the opportunity to work with the Jacksons. We weren't just on stage with them before that show started earlier in the day. Michael and my brother and I were having conversations about what he wanted shot. Because Michael was a photographer himself. He just couldn't go out and shoot like we can. But Michael, it was the first time I thought of someone that almost felt jealous of me, that had it all. Because I could go anywhere I want to pretty much and take pictures. Michael could not. And that probably caused him to be the type of eccentric person that he was. You know, he would have to hide. He talked about how he wished he could even hide in the bushes and take pictures. I said, that's pretty bad, you know, when you wish you had to be in bushes taking pictures. But that's how he felt. So I actually felt sorrier for him than for me. I said, well, I'll trade places with you. I'll take your money. You can have my camera, or you can have my looks. I'll take that cash. But you know, it's all up here. So it made me feel good to know that I was able to do something that he loved doing, because he was shooting pictures from the time he was 11 years old, but he just could not do it like we do it. And that's why I like being behind the scenes. And I will add to you, in a lot of cases, now some of you all are going to be, somebody in this room, and maybe several of you all are going to be famous one day. So that's why I wanted to take that picture early, so I can say, yeah, I knew him then, you know, if I don't have Alzheimer's by that time. But I can say I knew them then. But the whole point being is that when you get a chance to work with someone like that, it says a lot about you, that people trust you even at the highest levels. So this, it was a great feeling, absolutely great feeling. Anyone else? Okay, well, we can wrap it up, and I would certainly like to thank you all for you know, putting up with my story of my life, and I hope that you glean something from it that will hopefully inspire you to understand that you can come from anywhere in life and still, you know, work with the top people in the world based on the talents that you develop and nurture, and you will always be learning. Remember that. I'm 66 years old this year, my brother and I, and we're still learning photography. So it's not the type of thing, school is not out. In any profession, you will always be learning, you know, but at least be learning something at the level you enjoy. And when you enjoy it, it's not like anything else. You're glad to learn the latest thing about your profession.